a woman stumbled upon a strange, unidentified object. She sliced it open with a knife, only to find a monster living inside. The monster had the head of a shark, but its lower half boasted 8 legs. The woman, named Lorena, a marine biologist at the aquarium, took this bizarre creature home to feed and care for it personally. Under her care, the mini shark monster grew rapidly in just a few months. It soon transformed into a massive Sharktopus, with exceptionally sharp tentacles. Its gills were also spiked, allowing it to move on land as well as in water. Fortunately, it had a gentle nature and was very intelligent. It often responded to Lorena's commands. However, Munoz wanted to use the Sharktopus to make money by performing shows and fed it a live fish without permission. This nearly cost them their lives, as the live fish triggered the Sharktopus' hunting instincts. Luckily, Munoz was prepared and poured a sedative into the pool just in time to prevent a tragedy. But the Sharktopus had one distinct trait: it never attacked Lorena. To learn more about the Sharktopus, Lorena started researching online. She made a startling discovery. The Sharktopus was a new species called the cephaloshark, developed by Imitate Corporation through extracting genes from sharks and octopuses. It was dozens of times more lethal than regular sharks in the sea. After escaping the lab, it entered an amusement park and began attacking people, leading to several incidents. The scientists considered it a failed product and decided to detonate it by pressing the enter key. Unfortunately, the pregnant Sharktopus survived the explosion. Carried by the current into the ocean, it was accidentally caught by Lorena, who was monitoring the marine environment. Even though Lorena knows that the octopus shark is dangerous, she still feeds it as her pet. Munoz, facing a financial crisis, quickly decided to make the cephaloshark a main attraction to draw in tourists. Lorena naturally disagreed, stating it was too dangerous. Lorena is showing off her training to her lifeguard boyfriend Rick. Meanwhile, Munoz had just dealt with a complaint when an influencer couple stormed in, claiming the aquarium's creatures were too ordinary and threatened to expose them online. However, they promised to overlook this if they could see the Sharktopus, even offering to pay more. Munoz, not wanting more complaints, eagerly agreed. He led the couple into the Sharktopus territory and threw bait into the water. The man prepared to record the event, while the woman, unaware of the danger, sat by the water and removed her shoes. Suddenly, the Sharktopus extended its tentacles, startling the woman. Munoz hurriedly poured in more sedative, but it was too late. The woman's face was scratched by the Sharktopus, and her husband quickly dragged her away. As they left, the man vowed to expose the place. On the other hand, Imitate, still undeterred after the failure, took the genes of pterodactyls and barracudas and recombined them through gene sequences to create a weapon that could be used for military purposes. The Pteracuda. This amphibious creature could reach speeds of 200 kilometers per hour underwater. Rico implanted a control chip in its brain, allowing simple code inputs to easily control its movements. It could destroy targets like a missile and return unscathed. After demonstrating the Pteracuda capabilities, Rico ordered his subordinates to recall it. The research was expected to be heavily funded, but Futon got greedy in the lab and wanted Pteracuda all to himself. The Pteracuda killed a female supervisor and quickly vanished. Rico, unaware of what had happened, immediately sent his men to recapture the creature. Hamilton led his team out immediately. However, as their helicopter took off, it was fiercely attacked by the Pteracuda. The crew opened the hatch to retaliate, but the Pteracuda was too fast in the air, and the machine guns failed to hit the agile creature. The Pteracuda entered a frenzy mode. Rico tried to stop the command program but found he had completely lost control to an external force. Suddenly, the Pteracuda appeared in front of them. Their gunfire was ineffective against its tough skin. Feeling more like tickling, far from being hurt, the Pteracuda quickly retaliated. Eventually, even the helicopter was overturned by it and crashed into the sea. As everyone sighed in relief at having survived, they forgot the Pteracuda was amphibious. It dived into the water and moved rapidly. The crew barely saw the target before they were killed one by one. Only Hamilton managed to escape to the shore, but the Pteracuda followed closely. Futon accidentally crashed his car into a tree, spilling his drink and causing a short circuit in the controller. The out-of-control Pteracuda fled at this point as if under a spell. After a bobbing head, Hamilton narrowly escaped with his life. Rico realized that if Pteracuda lost control, it could bring disaster to the world. However, he didn't immediately report this to the authorities. Instead, He checked if the incident had hit the local news. He just happened to see a report about the Sharktopus attacking a tourist couple. Rico was instantly energized. Just now he was fretting about how to deal with the Barracuda ichthyosaurus, and now he saw Sharktopus, which was a gift of help. So they immediately approached Munoz of the Sea Clan Hall, paid him heavily and asked him to lend Sharktopus to the military for 2 days. Rico planned to use the Sharktopus to combat the Pteracuda. Munoz, stressed by the recent news, was only too happy to have someone take the monster off his hands, so he agreed right away. Munoz poured a whole bucket of sedative into the water, and the next second, a huge Sharktopus burst out of the water. Hamilton was about to shoot when the Sharktopus, affected by the drug, passed out. That's when Hamilton noticed that, in addition to having 8 large tentacles, the Sharktopus skills were also full of barbs. Hamilton then took out a drill, made a hole in the Sharktopus' head, and implanted a controller. Lorena, who had arrived, immediately tried to intervene. Money-hungry Munoz didn't care about these concerns and locked Lorena up. They exchanged money for goods and completed the transaction. Hamilton and Rico successfully took the cephaloshark away. They released the cephaloshark into the Pteracuda's territory, controlling it to combat the Pteracuda. Unexpectedly, there were 3 divers in the sea at that time. Soon, one diver noticed something was wrong in the water, turned to flee, but was targeted by the incoming Sharktopus and died instantly. Another diver was deep-sea diving when a huge dark shadow rushed towards him at high speed. Before he could react, a cloud of blood bloomed in the water. After stuffing the diver into its mouth, the Pteracuda surfaced contentedly, unaware that it had enraged the Sharktopus. Before the Pteracuda could react, it was dragged into the sea by the powerful 8 tentacles. The Pteracuda, startled, jumped out of the water, but the Sharktopus saw it as prey, opened its fanged mouth, bit it, and dragged it back into the sea. The Pteracuda suddenly became weak and could only struggle, unable to fight back. All it could do was strike hard, break free from the grip, and quickly flee. The Sharktopus followed closely, and the Pteracuda finally burst out of the sea again, heading towards the sky. But the Sharktopus extended its tentacles again, wrapping around the Pteracuda, and used its sharp tentacles to stab the Pteracuda's back, causing it great pain. The Pteracuda quickly turned around to break free. With a roar, it flew high into the sky, while the Sharktopus could only watch helplessly. Meanwhile, Lorena pried open the door and called Rick, the lifeguard, to explain the situation and asked him to evacuate the beachgoers immediately to prevent them from entering the sea. Rick drove his motorboat, using a loudspeaker to urge the tourists to come ashore quickly, but the tourists, caught up in their excitement, ignored his warnings, and people still gathered on the beach. Unaware of the approaching danger, he was lying down when a volleyball hit him in the face, and he stood up and yelled, but he didn't notice a tentacle appearing behind him that The Pteracuda followed and began attacking the tourists. Seeing this, people panicked and fled. Seeing the Pteracuda swoop over their heads, the influencer couple, previously attacked by the Sharktopus, scrambled off the beach. After boarding the plane, the couple breathed a sigh of relief, but the Pteracuda wasn't about to let them go. The plane suddenly began to shake violently. Looking out the window, they saw the Pteracuda had damaged the plane's engine. The plane instantly lost balance and crashed to the ground. By this time, there were no tourists on the beach, but there were still people surfing in the sea, and Sharktopus continued to attack the tourists by waving his tentacles up in the sea, killing them. Then the Pteracuda suddenly reappeared, immediately hunting any prey in sight. Seeing its rival competing for food, the Sharktopus quickly extended its tentacles, pulling people from a kayak into the sea. The Pteracuda showed its claws, ready to avenge its previous defeat. The Pteracuda firmly held the shark's gills, then bit towards its neck. However, the Sharktopus didn't have a neck, and realizing this, the Pteracuda quickly shot out of the water, flew to the clouds to adjust its angle, ready to strike the Sharktopus again. But the Sharktopus was prepared. At the moment of contact, it wrapped its tentacles around the Pteracuda's body and flung it hundreds of meters away. Furious, the Pteracuda stood up and attacked again. The Pteracuda reacted quickly, using all its strength to grab the Sharktopus into the air. But the Sharktopus was no less fierce. It stabbed fiercely at the Pteracuda's belly. The clever Pteracuda, knowing that a human is at the controls, bites off the controller in one bite, and unable to stand the pain himself chooses to throw the Sharktopus back into the sea. After battling for a long time and exhausting much energy, the two giants began to act independently. searching for food along the coast. Thus, both monsters lost control, and seeing the plan fall through, Rico was disappointed and had to think of other ways to deal with the Pteracuda. Hamilton quickly thought of a plan. They kidnapped Lorena. Since the Sharktopus was raised by her from a young age, they hoped Lorena could help control it to fight the Pteracuda. Meanwhile, Hamilton prepared weapons to destroy them, like harpoons and timed bombs, but Lorena, seizing an unguarded moment, secretly escaped from the car and found Rick, planning to flee the beach together, but Rick refused because he was a sea lifeguard and had to stick to his duty to save people. As the Pteracuda frantically hunted humans on the sea surface, Rick rode a rescue jet ski to draw its attention. However, Rick underestimated the speed of the Pteracuda. Even underwater, it could reach speeds of 200 kilometers per hour. In the next second, the Pteracuda burst from the water, soaring into the sky. And Lorena could only watch helplessly as Rick met his death. Losing Rick, Lorena was overcome with grief and decided to cooperate with the others for the sake of everyone in society. First, they needed to locate the Sharktopus. Lorena deduced that the Sharktopus had returned to the aquarium, as it was still a few months old and likely considered the aquarium its home. Munoz had just received a large sum of money and was preparing to flee when the Sharktopus emerged from the water, knocking over his case of cash. As Munoz reached to retrieve his money, the next second, the Sharktopus swallowed him whole. Several security guards, hearing the commotion, came to the poolside and drew their pistols to shoot. Though the bullets sparked off the Sharktopus, it was unharmed. Instead, the creature became enraged and effortlessly pinned them to the wall. Sharktopus also knew that he couldn't stay here, and then departed in the direction of the ocean. On the other side, Rico, after investigation, found out that the employee who tampered with the program did so intentionally to control the swordfish pterosaur, likely to attack a nuclear power station, making the situation extremely dangerous. Rico immediately pinpointed Futon's location. At the moment, Futon is hiding in the hotel. Lorena knocks on the door pretending to be a waitress and enters. Then Hamilton follows and breaks in to take Futon under control. It turned out that Futon had been bought by foreign investors who wanted to purchase the Pteracuda from him. As Rico was about to regain control of the Pteracuda, the news on TV caught their attention. Rico was wanted by the military because his creation had gone out of control and harmed too many civilians. However, the whistleblower was Lorena. Just as Rico confronted her, Futon suddenly drew a gun and took them hostage. Regaining control of the controller and fleeing with the case, he continued to tamper with the program in a corner, attempting to regain control of the Pteracuda to attack Rico and the others. Seeing that the program was about to succeed, Hamilton acted decisively, shooting and wounding Futon. Under Hamilton's demand, Futon raised his hands in surrender. Unexpectedly, the passing Pteracuda smelled the blood and swooped down to snatch him away. Rico got the controller and began operating it, only to find the computer battery was low. They needed to find a place to charge it quickly, but en route, they were constantly attacked by the Pteracuda. Seeing the car could no longer hold up, Hamilton and Lorena had no choice but to open the door and abandon the vehicle to flee. Lorena quickly dived into a public restroom. While Hamilton was blocked by the Pteracuda, he drew his dagger, ready to confront the Pteracuda head-on, but soon realized the disparity in their strengths and opted to run, leaping over a fence and straight into the roadside public restroom. Just as they caught their breath, a loud noise announced the arrival of the Sharktopus tentacle in front of Lorena. However, the tentacle did not harm her. It gently caressed her cheek. Sensing her presence, Lorena quickly stood up to check and realized the Sharktopus had come to rescue her. Soon, the two giants arrived at the beach and tangled together again, locked in an even match. Hamilton rushed back to protect Rico but discovered he wasn't the good guy. He was contacting foreign buyers, intending to sell them the technology to create a Pteracuda army at a high price. To maintain world peace, the justice-driven Hamilton forced Rico at gunpoint to the beach, making him board a small boat to leave. His fate was now in his own hands. The next second, the Pteracuda flew over, diving to grab him, but the Sharktopus immediately wrapped around his legs. Poor Rico was thus torn in half. Now, it was up to Hamilton and Lorena to resolve this crisis. Lorena quickly thought of a way to subdue them, using the Pteracuda's attraction to shiny objects as bait. Then, Hamilton found an opportunity to shoot a timed bomb onto it. To avoid causing more casualties, Hamilton and Lorena went out to sea and threw a glowing ball into the water to lure the Pteracuda out for a fatal strike. The Pteracuda quickly took the bait, but it seemed its intelligence had increased. as it attacked under the boat and knocked Lorena down. Just as the Pteracuda was about to snatch her, the Sharktopus rushed out to save her in the nick of time. This time, the two giants had to determine the winner. To become the king of this sea area, Hamilton took the chance to shoot and rescue Lorena. The Sharktopus wrapped its tentacles tightly around the Pteracuda, giving it no chance to breathe. Seeing Lorena had moved away from them, Hamilton took his moment, raised a rocket launcher, and aimed it at the Pteracuda's chest. The rocket hit directly into its body, severely injuring the Pteracuda, and the Sharktopus took the opportunity to pull it into the sea. Hamilton also quickly grabbed Lorena's hand and pulled her to safety. Then, Hamilton and Lorena hurriedly fled. At that moment, the two beasts were still entangled. The Sharktopus had bitten into the Pteracuda. 20 seconds later, the timed bomb inside the Pteracuda exploded. With a loud bang, the two giants were instantly blown to pieces. After the crisis is resolved, Hamilton and Lorena smile at each other and meet for a holiday in Hawaii. But suddenly Sharktopus tentacles are out in the sea again.